Hey everyone, I'm Logan Anderson, and today I'll be sharing some information about cholera. Let's get right into it. So, I know you guys have been expecting some kind of a big groundbreaking and creative presentation, but this is all I could put together in the short time frame given. But I did find a YouTube video from Spectrum that's extremely informative, and it covers pretty much everything you need to know. So, let's hit play on this and we'll watch it together. There have been many infectious diseases that have plagued our world. Smallpox, the Irish potato blight, tuberculosis, and of course, the bubonic plague. Tonight, however, we will be discussing a different but still very dangerous disease that continues to wreak havoc on the world around us. We may not see cholera infections on a day-to-day basis in Wisconsin, but this program will teach you everything you need to know about cholera, how it works, how we can contain it, and what we can do to minimize its effect on the human race. Hello and welcome to Spectrum News 1. I am Hogan Sanderson, and today my Spectrum News team, some special guests, and I are reporting about the dangerous disease known as cholera. Cholera, caused by a group of bacteria with the scientific name Vibrio cholera, has been infecting humans for more than 200 years. According to the World Health Organization, it is an acute diarrheal disease that can kill within just a few hours of infection if left untreated. Even though it is not seen very much in the US, it is still endemic in approximately 50 countries, most of which are in Africa and Asia. We now will talk to Sam to find out more about where this bacteria tends to live and cause outbreaks. Sam? Sam, we can't hear you. Are you having some issues? Well, it seems like Sam is having some trouble with his microphone out in the cold, so I'll be reading his lines for him. Sam was going to tell you that we Wisconsinites do not have to fear a cholera outbreak in the Midwest, at least not during the winter. Cholera is more prevalent in developing countries and tropical regions with rainy seasons. According to an article by Dr. Regina LaRocque, this disease is more common in developing countries because it most strongly affects poverty-stricken individuals who have lackluster access to clean water, safe food, and improper sanitation. Additionally, unplanned urbanization, climate change, and natural disasters increase the risk of cholera infections and even cholera pandemics. Our next segment of this special report on cholera will focus on cholera strains, the species they affect, as well as what effects those strains have on those species. Joining me in the studio is renowned disease ecologist and contemporary artist, Dr. Kermit Dufrog.
Hey Hogan, thanks for having me.
Of course, thanks for coming on the show. Now, the voice in my earpiece is telling me that you're here to drop a knowledge bomb about cholera strains. Care to go into more detail?
Sure thing. Well, there are some groups of cholera bacteria called serogroups, and actually the only ones that really matter...
Hang on, doctor. For those who don't know, can you explain what serogroups are?
Of course. So, serogroups are groups that have a distinct variation within a species, in this case bacteria, based on their surface antigens. This allows for a deeper, more specific classification that goes beyond species. Anyways, there are over 200 known subgroups of the cholera bacteria, but only 2 of those are outbreak-causing in humans. And even so, one of those strains, first identified in Bangladesh in 1992, has since only been identified in sporadic cases, making only one serogroup responsible for all recent outbreaks.
And that group is called O1, correct?
That is correct, yes. And it's important that people know the serogroup causing problems, but it's also important to recognize the species that these other serogroups infect as well. According to the Center for Food Security and Public Health, cholera bacteria can not only infect us humans, but also can infect dogs, bison, and cattle. Plus, cholera has been found in sea and riverine creatures like fish, crustaceans, algae, shellfish, arthropods that are serving as vectors or reservoir organisms. People rarely know that cholera is in fact a zoonotic disease, meaning that it comes from animals and can infect us.
Now, what kind of effects do these strains have on organisms, especially humans?
Cholera has left a huge dent on us humans. We literally raised Chicago a few feet to help mitigate the severity of cholera in the city. However, cholera also helped main founder of epidemiology, Jon Snow, who's not the main character from Game of Thrones, figure out how it transmitted and recirculated from person to person. I'm sure you'll talk more about that later, though. Anywho, cholera itself is caused by the ingestion of bacteria, and its incubation period can be just a few days before symptoms occur. The specific symptoms are mainly watery diarrhea and vomiting. The Mayo Clinic also emphasizes how, because of all this water loss from the body, electrolyte balance can cause shock and muscle cramps. However, for a more broad stroke analysis, the CDC emphasizes dehydration, diarrhea, vomiting, rapid heart rate, and blood pressure as symptoms of cholera infection.
That seems pretty intense, Doctor. How often do these symptoms become severe?
About 1 in 10 people will experience severe symptoms, but even extreme dehydration left untreated can lead to kidney failure, comas, and even death. However, with quick treatment, people usually recover without any long-lasting consequences.
And that is a positive note to end on. Dr. DeFrog, thank you for your time. Next, we'll be talking about how cholera transmits from one organism to another, diagnosing cholera infections, and more general disease impacts after the break. Welcome back to the program. I'm Hogan Sanderson. We are now going to talk about the mode of transmission utilized by cholera bacteria. To start, cholera bacteria spread is exacerbated by natural disasters, low socioeconomic status, and lack of sanitation. The bacterial transmission of cholera occurs after mixing infected fecal water with drinking water. For our nerds out there, this is called the fecal-oral route of transmission. Additionally, cholera can be spread via vectors, whether that be humans, flies, or infected water and food. According to Dr. Xin Cheng, the main characteristic of cholera transmission is 2 levels of mixing: local, direct, human to human, and global, indirect, human to water to human. Here we have an excellent graphic to go along with this example. For human-to-human transmission, fecal matter that contains large amounts of the infectious Vibrio cholerae germs will infect individuals who ingest those germs. When it comes to diagnosing people with cholera, it mostly comes down to physical symptoms. As we discussed before, vomiting and diarrhea are common symptoms, but it also is important to pay attention to what Dr. Regina LaRocque calls rice water stool, which is feces that has flecks of mucus in it. We do have an image of what that looks like, so if you're squeamish, please look away. Additionally, in severe epidemics, the mortality rate of cholera in untreated patients may reach 50 to 70%. Cases of cholera can be treated before they are confirmed, either by stool cultures, antigen detection, molecular tests, or dark field microscopy. Keep in mind, though, that the WHO warns that many who are infected do not develop symptoms, and their feces can be infectious up to 10 days after their initial infection. Those who are most susceptible to this disease include those responsible for preparing food for their family, fishermen collecting raw fish from bodies of water, and families with little sanitary measures like proper toilets and personal hygiene products. And now, having just finished a course on the history of disease at Disease College, I'd like to introduce Dr. Luke Ambers to share his insights on the impact of cholera and how it can be contained. Dr. Ambers, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here, Hogan.
Dr. Ambers, on your course History of Disease, what were the main events you taught your students regarding cholera?
I like to start pretty much at the beginning of cholera gaining widespread attention. In the 1880s, Louis Pasteur began looking into the possibility of the existence of what we now call germs, and this became known as the germ theory of disease. Eventually, he even developed vaccines for anthrax, chickenpox, and cholera, of course. But now, I hear some of your viewers already saying, well, if we've had a vaccine for over 100 years now, why is it still such a large problem? That I can answer with two simple words: antibiotic resistance. Now, Hogan, let me ask you this. When you are prescribed a little packet of pills when you're feeling down, are you finishing those regardless of how you feel?
Dr. Ambers, I'll be honest with you. I only take those pills when I'm feeling under the weather. Why would I take pills when I'm healthy?
Aha! Now, there's a problem right there, Hogan. When you don't take the recommended dosage of a drug, sure, you may feel all fine and you can go about your day as if you were never sick. But inside you, though, there is a little bit of bacteria or virus that was just backed up against a wall in a final stand against all odds. And you let it live. You allowed it to become a mutant to that antibiotic you were prescribed. And now, a more potent form of that bacteria stands tall. And that can be transmitted to people, more susceptible, more vulnerable people. That is the problem with antibiotic resistance, and you are contributing to that, sir.
Well, I didn't think I'd be put down for such a small mistake, but clearly I'm in the wrong. I'll be sure to take my pills all the way through next time, Dr. Ambers. Anyway, let's get back to your course. What other things do you discuss with your students?
Let's see. I also like to discuss how, according to the World Health Organization, cholera spread from the Ganges Delta in India, and from there it spread to South Asia in the 60s, Africa in the 70s, and the Americas in the 90s. Nowadays, though, cholera has become endemic in numerous countries. I'd also like to point out that endemic is not epidemic, two different terms. So, in endemic is more about a constant presence, or a more spread out presence of a disease with a rather low reproductive number for transmission. In epidemic, though, is when there are clusters of individuals that are infected at around the same time within the same geographic region. And then pandemics are where there are multiple regions of those clusters. Anyway, I also like to share my thoughts on that horrible 2010 cholera outbreak in Haiti, which was actually caused by the UN officials sent there to help.
Dr. Ambers, there's no way that's true. You can't just
No,
expect-
Hogan. This is completely true. The UN's own investigation showed it. A genetic tracing of the strain of the cholera found in Haiti was very similar, eerily similar, to a strain in Nepal. Now, how did a Nepalese strain of cholera end up in Haiti? UN workers themselves were the vector. And the worst part is, the UN has yet to take responsibility for it.
Very well, Doctor. Let's move on to containment, control, and treatment. How do we best fight cholera as a society?
Alright, so the first thing that the CDC recommends is to isolate and quarantine infected individuals. Even though it's a frightening image, I'd like to show your audience a picture taken of the isolation center with those cool but horrible cots. These cots were specially made with a hole in the middle, thus allowing for the proper collection and containment of fecal matter from individuals infected with cholera. As my friend Dr. Cheng says in one of his papers, the more we supervise, isolate, and quarantine spaces with infected people, the better we can control the spread of this disease. However, that also requires that these places need to be prepared. Cholera is by no means going away anytime soon. So we need to increase lab capacities for early identification, increase resources to regions in need, and eliminate the monetary shackles of most of these developing countries that are ripped apart by cholera and many other diseases by providing them funding.
Are there any actions that we can take right now to control this disease?
Of course, it may be cliche, but washing your hands thoroughly and limiting contact with infected materials are excellent ways to minimize the spread of cholera, or any disease really. For those who are sick, proper use of oral rehydration solution is excellent for staving off the effects of the vomiting and diarrhea. Also, filtering water through a thick cloth and cooking meals all the way through is key for controlling cholera transmission. Surveillance can be used to detect cholera infections before they become epidemics, but that requires a rapid diagnostic tests that may not be available in all regions, which is why I am promoting a multifaceted approach that includes surveillance, better water availability, the societal encouragement of proper sanitation and hygiene, as well as getting medical resources where they need to go as soon as possible.
Is there a vaccine available for cholera, Dr. Ambers?
Yes, it's called oral cholera vaccine when compared to antibiotics, which you should only take when prescribed, as if not, they also may contribute to antibiotic resistance, as I talked about before. This vaccine only requires 2 doses for full protection, and as of 2013, a global stockpile has been made by the World Health Organization, allowing more than 50 million of these oral vaccines to be distributed to where they needed to be. If you're in the US though, there is a live attenuated vaccine that is available for people aged between 2 and 64 years old who are traveling to high-risk areas. My final recommendation would be to improve your diet. Better food, better prepared food with all the proper vitamins and nutrients needed can do a lot more than you think when it comes to strengthening your immune system, but vaccines do a heck of a lot of good work.
Thank you, Dr. Ambers. Though, isn't it a bit hypocritical for you to be smoking a pipe while talking about improving one's health?
Well, that may be, but I find it helps me focus. Care to try it?
After all you said about infected materials and contact with them, I'll pass. Thank you, though, Dr. Ambers.
Suit yourself.
Next up, we'll wrap up our special report on cholera by talking about the world's current cholera situation, as well as where we go from here. Don't go away. Welcome back. We're now going to cut to Sam once again so we can finish our program. Sam? Well, that's unfortunate. Anyway, now that we know so much more about cholera, where are we at regarding cholera in our modern world? Well, as of today, the World Health Organization estimates that there are between 1.3 million and 4 million cases of cholera each year, with between 21,000 and 143,000 deaths due to cholera each year. Additionally, as of January 16, 2024, as reported by Sky News, there is a current outbreak of cholera in Zambia. This crisis has taken advantage of some of the recommendations for prevention, treatment, and isolation to best manage this disease. However, there is some hope moving forward. There is currently research underway by Nathan Ho in California, looking into how nanoparticles may be used to degrade bacterial cell walls without the potential resistance that is tied to antibiotic use. They are currently in their preclinical studies now. Additionally, similar compounds are being researched, like Makian essential oils by PhD candidate Mahmoud Dahab, that exhibit antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, and renoproductive activities in diabetic mice that might also contribute to our fight against cholera. Finally, there is an initiative that began in 2017 to reduce cholera deaths by 90% by the year 2030. This program is called Ending Cholera, a global roadmap to 2030, and it wants to focus on using as many institutions as possible to detect cholera early, multi-sectoral approaches that prevent cholera recurrence through targeted systems, and creating local and global partnerships that have enough resources to make this dream a reality.
Dude, that sounds tubular. We're gonna
save the world or something, man.
Anyway, we at Spectrum hope this program raised awareness for cholera and shared how the spread of cholera can be prevented, which is better than the UN could do. Excuse me. This is Hogan Sanderson, signing off. Well, that just about wraps up my presentation. I hope you learned at least something new about cholera today, and let's continue to work together to remove this barbaric bacteria from our world. Thank you for listening. Oh, and also, here are my sources. There's a lot of them. See ya.